Good evening. My name is Tom Goodbarn. I'm the District 1 engineer with the Nebraska Department of Transportation. Welcome. We're glad you're here. It's good to see so many in the house. Thank you for taking the time to hear about and provide input on this important project. This is an exciting milestone for the department, the city, the county, and the residents of both. We've been speaking and planning for the Lincoln South Beltway for decades, and today we're one step closer to realizing that vision. But tonight is really about you. This is your opportunity to let us know what you think about the project, what we can do to make this project better, and how we can minimize disruption as we move forward. You can give us your comments here tonight verbally or in writing, but to be included in the final environmental assessment, your comments must be received in writing by October 7th, which is the end of the comment period for this draft environmental assessment. Everyone who provides a comment and contact information will receive a response. All comments will be reviewed and considered before final decisions are made on the project, and the final environmental assessment is published. Besides taking your comments, we're here tonight to provide information and updates on the project as well. In a few minutes, our panel here will give a brief presentation to familiarize you with the Lincoln South Beltway. They'll provide a brief project overview, explain the project's purpose and need, cover its history, current status, and review the social and environmental impact assessment for this draft environmental assessment. They'll also go over key elements of the project design and milestones in the project's development. The panel will then provide a summary of the environmental analysis that has been completed and is documented in this draft environmental assessment, which we will from now on refer to as the DEA. Again, our main purpose here tonight and throughout this comment period is to hear from you. Tonight, after going over the time frame and logistics of the DEA review and the comment period and the next steps, we'll have a formal oral comment period where you can come up. Those of you who have signed up, as we stated earlier, can speak and have your comments recorded by the court reporters. We've allotted 3 minutes per speaker to make sure everyone has an opportunity to be heard. There may be quite a few speakers, we hope. The panel members are Mike Owen, roadway design engineer, Steve McCullough with NDOT roadway design, Randy Hoskins with the City of Lincoln, Jason Juergens, the environmental program manager with the NDOT, and helping me moderate this evening is your District 1 Highway Commissioner, Mary Gerdes. NDOT Public Involvement Manager Sarah Sula will facilitate the comment period. We're looking forward to hearing from you at the end of this presentation. Mike.
Thanks, Tom. My name is Mike Owen. I'm the roadway design engineer. How am I coming in the back? Everybody here okay? All right, good. As Tom commented, we've been planning the Lincoln South Beltway for many years. The new 11-mile freeway would run about a half-mile south of Sawtilla Road and connect Highway 2 with US 77. Please note as I go through these slides, the segment labeled Nebraska Highway will be referred to as Highway 2. The Lincoln South Beltway would provide a new option for regional travelers to bypass local traffic to get around the city. Currently, most regional travelers coming through Lincoln travel through the city on Highway 2. Those of you who travel Highway 2 have commented about the congestion, about safety, and the heavy trucks within the city limits. Conflicts between the local and regional freight traffic will get worse as traffic volumes increase. Based on a study that we performed on freight trucks currently using Highway 2, nearly 80% of the large trucks do not have a destination in Lincoln, and we expect would use the South Beltway once it's operational. The South Beltway has two primary purposes. First, to improve the regional connectivity for the through travelers who are making their connections between I-80 and I-29. And second, to benefit the local residents by reducing the conflicts between the through traveler, the heavy trucks, and the local users who use the local network for access. Population and travel volumes in the city and Lancaster County have increased steadily, and this trend is expected to continue. As the city develops, the edges of the city are filling in. Strong growth is expected to continue on the south and east sides of the town, where the capacity of the current transportation network is limited. The regional trips along Highway 2 increase traffic volumes and congestion, slowing both local and regional travel. The network is not designed to convey the regional traffic and the heavy trucks. Freight travel through the city creates a unique challenge. Frequent stops and slow acceleration and deceleration of the trucks on the local roads disrupts traffic flow and impedes mobility and presents safety concerns for both the freight and local traveler. This slide shows a brief history of the project. The city started looking at options for the Beltway loop around Lincoln in the 60s and the 70s, but we got serious about the planning for the south and east segments in the late 1990s. During that time, the city, the county, and NDOT, and the Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, evaluated several alternatives and selected preferred beltways on the south and east sides of Lincoln. These beltways were approved by FHWA, which is the lead federal agency, in a 2002 Environmental Impact Statement, EIS for short. Our agencies continued to develop the designs for the south and east beltways until the late 2000s, when it became clear that we couldn't afford to build these projects with our current budgets. However, with funding from the Build Nebraska Act of 2011, we were able to revive the Lincoln South Beltway. In 2013, we began an environmental assessment process to reevaluate and approve the approved alternative with a goal toward construction in 2020. This is the current typical section, which includes 2 travel lanes in each direction, inside and outside surface shoulders, and a wide center grass median. This is similar to the 2002 concept, but the median and shoulders are wider now to meet current safety standards. The footprint of the design has also been refined based on the advanced design, particularly in refining the local road connections at the interchanges. We have refined the cost estimate, which now stands at $300 million. For the most part, the project alignment is not different than where we left off in 2002. The alignment connects the same local roads, but the connections have been improved. The hatched area is the current design. The yellow is the 2002 footprint. If we zoom in, here is the west end of the project. Here is the middle of the project. The hatched area is the current design, and the yellow is the 2002 footprint. And here's the east end of the project. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Steve McCullough to discuss more of the details of the current project design.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, I'm Steve McCullough, also with the Nebraska Department of Transportation Roadways Design Unit. I'm going to walk through some of the project from west to east and go through some of the important changes of the project. Our current design has progressed well. With the refinements in design, we have a much better sense of the right-of-way requirements and impacts of the project. We also have an understanding of how the project will operate in relation to the existing city and county roadways, and how both local and regional traffic will use and navigate the Beltway. In the room across the hall, there are large plots of the design as well as project-related details. We also have electronic files that we can review with you if you are interested in a specific area. There are also department right-of-way representatives here tonight that can help explain the next steps if you have a property along the proposed freeway. Now I want to highlight some of the changes Mike noted in the design. Since the 2002 EIS, changes to the West System interchange resulted in improved design speed for both the Beltway and the associated ramp movements. The 27th Street connector was extended to the south for an improved transition into Bennett Road. The new intersections at 70th Street and 84th Street will be configured with single-lane roundabouts instead of the previous stop-controlled condition. The interchange at 82nd Street has been modified in order to reduce impacts to waters of the U.S. and wetlands. There have been some access changes to the East System interchange, including new cul-de-sacs at 120th Street, just north of the interchange, and also on Rokeby Road, just west of the relocated Highway 2. In addition, the East System interchange was designed to accommodate a future East Beltway. Here's a typical section and bird's eye view of the South Beltway. This new freeway will have 4 travel lanes. The median and shoulder widths are standard for a freeway facility that will be posted at 65 miles per hour. This roadway section would allow expandability. Should the need arise in the future, additional travel lanes could be added in the area of the depressed median. Widening to the middle would greatly reduce the need to purchase more right-of-way in the future. As part of the environmental analysis and to help the public better visualize the new roadways, we have developed renderings of the key features. They're on display here tonight. From this viewpoint, we are looking northbound from US 77 to the new Beltway within the West System interchange. In this area, the Beltway will be located close to the existing ground, but we have a lot of other grading and bridges to do to make connections between the roadways. This represents one of the areas of greatest visual change in the project area, and visual impacts is one of the many environmental and community issues we considered in analyzing the Beltway's effects. Jason Juergens is going to provide an overview of other environmental and community issues and analyses that we conducted during this reevaluation.
I'm Jason Juergens with NDOT's environmental section. As Mike had mentioned earlier, we did a thorough review of the environmental, social, and economic impacts in the 2002 EIS. The current environmental assessment effort reevaluates potential impacts associated with the changes in design and environmental conditions associated with the South Beltway. In the draft environmental assessment, we reevaluated project impacts and mitigation measures to determine if there were any new significant impacts that were not envisioned in the 2002 EIS. Tonight, I'm going to highlight some of the bigger issues we looked at in the current environmental assessment effort. The draft environmental assessment, referred to as the draft EA, includes a detailed discussion of impacts and mitigation for 23 different environmental and community resources. So what changed? The South Beltway project design continued to progress since the 2002 EIS when it was approved. There have been minor alignment shifts and modifications to the configuration of interchanges, requiring us to reassess environmental and community impacts due to those changes. Additionally, we continue to explore and implement other design modifications to avoid and minimize impacts to resources along the project corridor. Overall, this environmental assessment compares the impacts of the current design in light of current environmental conditions and regulatory requirements to what was presented in the 2002 EIS. And this also ensures that there are no new significant impacts resulting from the current project. For most environmental resources, we found similar types of impacts. Conditions remain the same for many resources, primarily as a result of limited development within the project area. We also evaluated mitigation measures presented in the 2002 EIS and found that similar types of mitigation to be needed today. I'm going to ask Randy Hoskins with the city to talk about some of the transportation, right-of-way, and bicycling considerations. Then I will come back and I will do an overview of some of the natural and social environmental issues.
I'm Randy Hoskins with the City of Lincoln. This project is a key link in our transportation network that we've been working on adding for a long time now, as you saw from the slides earlier. The city has long viewed the Lincoln South Beltway as a critical component of our long-term transportation network. The South Beltway will provide many benefits for local and long-distance traffic by reducing the conflicts between those of us who live here and those who are traveling through Lincoln on the same roads. In particular, the Beltway will reduce congestion on Highway 2 where it runs through the city. The project will necessitate some changes to our network. In order to make north-south travel across the Beltway more efficient, the project will funnel traffic to the main crossroads, and some of the current connections will be closed to through traffic. Although we will continue to provide access to all properties, access along the Beltway will change, and this will change some of the travel patterns and in some instances, the direction of travel south of the city. The plots and the electronic files across the hall provide considerable detail if you have questions about how your property could be affected. The project constructs a new freeway, so land will be required to create that new route. The final right-of-way requirements will be determined through the final design process, but it should look very much like the current version. This new right-of-way will entail the purchase of properties adjacent to the freeway. Most of the acquisitions are for agricultural lands. NDOT anticipates that a few relocations will also occur. At this point, we think 3 residences, 1 business, and 1 livestock operation will require relocation. Property acquisition and relocations must follow specific legal procedures and will be handled in accordance with federal and state requirements. All affected property owners will be contacted by NDOT right-of-way agents to discuss purchase details. The NDOT agents will work directly with property owners to oversee acquisitions and relocations and to ensure compliance with federal and state regulations. Right-of-way representatives are on hand tonight if you have questions of them. Bicycling is important in and around the city of Lincoln. The agencies have met with bicycling groups to discuss their concerns and to understand where the bicyclists travel and the routes that they want to take to get there. We've heard that keeping bicycle routes open across the new South Beltway was important. So we made sure that we accommodated existing routes on US 77, the Jamaica North and Homestead Trails, and Highway 2. The design includes passage over or under the Beltway in locations where we may have future trails. NDOT committed to look at alternatives for maintaining bicycling options when US 77 is upgraded to a freeway. New highways open up the potential for development, and both agencies and the public alike worry about sprawl. NDOT worked with the city and county to look at development trends and projections with and without the Beltway. While the Beltway is sensitive to development pressures along the south side of Lincoln, we concluded that any project-related development would be limited to the Beltway area and areas already targeted for growth in the city-county comprehensive plan. Additionally, city planners have determined that the Beltway is compatible with the city's growth goals and projections. I'll now turn it back over to Jason.
As I had mentioned earlier, the draft EA contains quite a bit of detail regarding the analysis that we conducted and the impact conclusions, both in the main body of the draft EA document and in the appendices. I would encourage you to reference those documents and to talk with any of my staff here tonight if you have any additional questions or concerns about the environmental impacts of the project. One of the key resources that we reevaluated in the draft EA is wetlands and what we refer to as waters of the U.S. Basically those streams and drainages that connect through the watershed and provide important ecological values. Many acres of wetlands and streams lie within the project study area. Salt Creek and its tributaries are the dominant features. Overall, the current design is estimated to affect a little over 15 acres of wetlands and crosses 22 stream channels. We looked at many design options and modifications to avoid and minimize wetland and stream channel impacts. The most significant avoidance measure resulted from changing 82nd Street interchange to a folded diamond configuration from the traditional diamond interchange that was shown conceptually in the 2002 EIS. Through design refinements and coordination with environmental permitting agencies, we've been able to reduce wetland impacts by nearly 3.5 acres, almost 20% from what was identified in the 2002 EIS projections. As we continue to update the final design plans and work through the permitting process with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, we will continue to look for opportunities to minimize wetland and stream channel impacts. The final wetland impacts will vary somewhat through this permitting process. As part of the wetland mitigation process, we will be creating new wetlands to replace those that have been impacted. Most of these wetlands replacements will be created on current right-of-way that we have near the 27th Street interchange, but it is likely that additional wetland will be required. Wetland mitigation will be required. Related to wetlands and waters of the U.S. are floodplains. It is important that the Lincoln South Beltway does not increase potential for flooding. The Beltway crosses 6 floodplains, 3 associated with Salt Creek, 2 associated with Wagon Train Creek, and 1 along Stevens Creek. We have worked extensively with both the city and the county to ensure the Lincoln South Beltway design will conform with local floodplain regulations. Site-specific hydrology and hydraulic studies were conducted so that the project could be designed so as not to impede stream flows. Upon completion of the final project design, we will continue to work with Lincoln and Lancaster County to obtain all appropriate floodplain permits. A floodplain map revision will be required when project construction is completed to account for the project footprint that occurs within mapped floodplain areas. We also took a second look at the project's effects on wildlife, including threatened and endangered species for changed conditions. A major concern was the movement of wildlife along the Salt Creek corridor. In coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, we concluded that the long bridges over Salt Creek and the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad and the additional bridge over the Jamaica North Trail would provide adequate wildlife passage. After the project is built, we are going to monitor wildlife movements through the Salt Creek corridor to make sure that we do not have wildlife crossing issues. Since 2002, the northern long-eared bat, which is found throughout Wilderness Park, has been identified as a federally threatened species. Again, we have worked with the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Nebraska Game and Parks to assess potential impacts to the bat and to include appropriate mitigation measures to ensure the project will not have any adverse effects on the species. We also have determined that the project will have no effect to any other threatened and endangered species. The Jamaica North Trail is an important recreational trail that follows the old Union Pacific right-of-way through Wilderness Park. Recreational resources such as this trail are protected under Section 4F of the U.S. DOT Act. As such, we made sure that the Beltway crossing of the trail did not affect the trail's function or use, either during construction or once the Beltway is operational. While we couldn't completely avoid all impacts to the trail, we were able to design around any significant impacts. FHWA cannot approve a project that has an adverse use of an important recreational property like the Jamaica North Trail without considering alternatives. Based upon the review, impacts to the Jamaica North Trail from the project appear to be minor and not adverse. After taking public input into consideration, Federal Highway will coordinate with the agencies responsible for the trail prior to making a final decision. Earlier, Steve showed one of the views that we prepared as part of the visual impact analysis. The following slides show the visual change from the Jamaica North Trail. This picture shows the current view of the Jamaica Trail looking south to where the future South Beltway Bridge crossing would be. This is the same view showing the new bridge crossing, including a semi-trailer truck crossing over the trail. As you can see, the Beltway would be visible, but it is not overly intrusive. I know a lot of you are interested in what happens during construction, so I want to turn it back to Steve McCullough to provide an overview of the expected impacts during construction.
The Lincoln South Beltway is a large project, and we believe it will take up to 7 years to fully complete. The key part of the process is to look at how we are going to construct the beltway and how we can shorten this schedule, which will also shorten the duration of impacts. We know you're concerned about how your daily lives will be affected during construction and for how long. Construction will mainly affect US 77 and Highway 2 in the Beltway areas, at intersections of existing local roads along the Beltway and at affecting adjacent properties. Activities on US 77 and Highway 2 will be phased to allow traffic to remain open during construction. This will be done using a combination of lane restrictions and temporary widening. However, the north-south local roads will be closed at times during construction, which will greatly reduce the amount of time needed to build the new roadway. Therefore, you may need to detour around construction at times, but we will not close the adjacent routes at the same time to minimize out-of-distance travel. This shows a possible detour while the contractor is working on 68th Street. The work zone is that connection between 68th and 70th Street. Drivers would not be allowed to go north on 68th Street, so would have to travel on 54th Street. For all north-south street closures, the adjacent roads would remain open, such as 54th and 82nd in this example. Examples of other detour are presented in the appendix of the environmental assessment and in the design room across the hall. The detour routes were developed so when an existing paved road is closed, the detour would be signed on a possible paved route. If the existing roadway is gravel, then the detour route might be a combination of gravel and paved. Note these are just preliminary plans and ideas with the Nebraska Department of Transportation. We will work with the city and the county and the contractor to develop and communicate closures and detours. Lane and road closures will also cause travel delays. It will be noisy and dusty, and the contractor will need to control sediment and erosion from leaving the construction site. These impacts will be minimized as much as possible by using best management practices and other measures. The department and the contractor will develop and implement a traffic management plan that details work zone traffic management, safety, and the best detour routes. We will continue to adapt this plan as construction proceeds, and there will be opportunities for you to provide input, compliments, and complaints throughout the construction period. Looking ahead, there is a timeline for the next steps in the Lincoln South Beltway project through the completion. We are currently in the draft environmental assessment comment review period. During this period, roadway design gets completed and we'll be checking and collecting and responding to public and agency comments. We expect to have the final EA, the FEA, completed in the spring of 2018. The FEA will describe any changes to the project as a result of agency or public comments. We anticipate moving forward with final design and right-of-way acquisition later in 2018, and the remaining construction advertised bid and award process in 2019. If all goes well, we will start construction in 2020. I'm now going to turn it over to Mary Gertis, Highway Commissioner.
Hello, I am Mary Gertis, the State Highway Commissioner for District 1. Thank you, panel, for the overview of the Lincoln South Beltway project. We will start the public forum next. This is our time to talk and yours, excuse me. We will start the public forum next. This is your time to talk and ours to listen. Before we begin, I'd like to review the ways you can comment on this draft EA. You have many options for providing us your feedback. Number one, you can provide comments here publicly this evening. If you didn't have a chance to sign up where you came in, you can sign up at the table in the back of the room. This gives us an idea of how many people we have waiting. Number two, You can visit the separate court reporter at the front of the room. Be over here on the right, your left. And following the form if you wish to voice your comments more privately. Number 3, you can submit a written comment on one of the prepaid forms provided at the front entrance. You can grab one on your way out if you haven't gotten one already. Number 4, you can visit the NDOT website. There is a comment section on the Lincoln South Beltway project page. Or, number 5, you can mail or email Sarah Sola. Her contact information is provided on the materials presented tonight. Please submit your comments by October 7th, 2017 so that we can include them in the DEA. The final EA will address comments we received during the comment period. We will provide a reply to those who have raised a question, need further clarification, or requested a response. We will consider every comment before moving forward with this project. The final EA will be posted on the Nebraska Department of Transportation website once it's completed, including the comments provided throughout the comment period. We are now ready to hear from you.